Big 12 or go home. As always, I'm Brandon Shanahan, joined by Iowa broadcasting legend Drew Russell. Drew Russell, what a time to be a Big 12 fan. I'll tell you what. Wanted to dive into some grades for the Big 12 conference and their
Ooh,
individual teams. So just for this exercise, what we'll be doing that we'll be grading each team on a scale. Uh, Essentially, the grade book's going to show three assignments: how you grade their football season, that's going to be worth 40 points; their men's basketball season, 40 points; and then their outlook, that's going to be worth 20 points. And then those will all get calculated. So essentially, each team will get six different grades: three from you, three from me, and that
okay.
will show up on their grade. So I shout out Google Sheets. I found this lovely template
Ooh, here we go. I can't wait
to
to see
do
that.
the
Ooh,
grades.
that's nice, Brandon. That's
Yeah, we
that's
got it.
nice color scheme, everything.
Yeah, we got it in alphabetical order here. So we'll kind of just start alphabetically. Arizona making their Big 12 debut. Successful football campaign last year. Felt like it might have been the best Arizona team I've ever seen. They got Noah Fafita, who's a bona fide superstar. They also lose their coach at the very last minute after the main coaching carousel. They're scrambling, and I think they did well. But if we're just looking at their last football season, I think this is one of the easier A's I'll give out. They were outstanding, especially compared to expectations.
Yeah, I'm going to go just sheerly based on this last season, Brandon. We're not going to look at future. I'm going to go just sheerly based off vibes. I'm with you. A for that football program. What a fun year. They took all of the conference championships from our beloved Oklahoma team uh, in a terrific bowl game. So, great year for Arizona. They got a new AD as well, really good. Uh, an Arizona alum that was at Mizzou, and it's hilarious they took her away from Mizzou. That's so funny to me. They're in good shape. So, yeah, A for sure on that.
Awesome. And so we'll do on a scale of 1 to 40. So I don't have to
Oh,
keep
okay.
teetering with this calculator here. So 38 would be an A. I would assume anything more than that would be an A plus. Actually, let me just take a look while we're messing with the spreadsheet. Okay, so yeah, 95
Yeah, like
would be an E.
yeah,
So
if you're at a 40,
yeah, that's
yeah, I mean that like a 39 is like a 97%
yeah,
out of 40. 38
yeah,
is 95%.
that's some outstanding arithmetic, Drew Russell.
Hey,
You
I was
get an
number
A
one in
for
my class. I was number one in my class in that, Brandon. I'll tell you what, it's funny
hey,
I'm a
that's
journalism
impressive.
major because I can't write for Jack, but my numbers are good. I'll tell you that.
Hey, there you go. Men's basketball, perennial basketball brand, had a great regular season. Kind of a short March. How are you feeling about the Wildcats ball club?
Yeah, I mean, it was a great regular season. They were a two seed. Yeah, I mean, the postseason didn't go as well, I think, as they were anticipating. Didn't get out of the first weekend, which was very disappointing for them. Don't care about future because this is surely based off of this last season.
Yep.
Let's go with 32, B minus. I because they've had so many good regular seasons, Brandon. Really good regular seasons. They've seen some success in their conference tournament. They're going to be fun to watch in Kansas City for future basketball conference tournaments. But I'm going to go 32 just because that March Madness effort, that means something to that school. And they had a shot at a Final Four, and they didn't get it done.
Yeah. Especially in the region where I felt like they were in. I felt like it was very wide open. I mean, you basically don't have to see a team outside of a shaky Baylor team until the Elite Eight. I thought it was well for them. I'll give them an easy 30. It feels like that's a good spot for them to come into, and they had a really good season. And I think if God forbid there's another global pandemic and the tournament gets canceled again, I think you feel really good about Arizona's season. But I don't. Yeah, you obviously want to accomplish more here.
Yeah.
Now for
They'll be
outlook,
interesting to see year one of the Big 12. Yeah.
yeah, I think they'll fit in real well. That would be so fun. That'll be so
Yeah.
fun. And that brings us to Outlook. Just a general vibe, essentially, for Arizona. Boy, I would give them a full 20. I might even give them some extra credit points if Jetfish was still there. Without him, I have some real concerns about Arizona. The one thing that kind of keeps me above, like say, like a 25 or a 10 or half credit is the fact that Noah Fafita is still there, because that tells
Yep.
me, one, he's a Wildcat through and through, and whatever their coaching staff is projecting, whatever their message is, it's good enough to keep him, because he could have gone almost anywhere. I mean, you got Will Howard at Ohio State. It's not crazy to think that Noah Fafita could have been the whole Ohio State quarterback if he wanted to, or at Oregon, who just picked up Dylan Gabriel, so on and so forth. So I'll give them a 15 here. I still feel really good about them as a whole,
Yeah.
and especially in the Big 12, that's very wide open still.
Yeah, 15 was my exact number as well, Brandon. I like every football outlook I like because it's just open right now in the Big 12. You don't
Very
feel like
open.
there's a hierarchy
Lots of good
of
vibes.
power. So I don't know if I'm going to have any horrible outlooks for most of our football programs because I like the overall outlook. And basketball, it's kind of, that one's actually kind of weighing my score down a little bit because Big 12 hoops is going to be more competitive. It's going to be it's been a grind for a long time, Brandon. And somehow that grind just got even tougher. But for Arizona, it's going to be a big change for them because they're going to be traveling way more, a lot of cross-country flights. That's going to be tough. But I got a 15 as well. I still like the overall just vibe of the Wildcat program.
I definitely have one program that I don't feel great about for either one, but we'll get there shortly. Arizona State, Kenny Dillingham running the show. So football season, but when you look at the job that Kenny Dillingham did, taking over after that disastrous Herm Edwards situation, in a season where there's so much up in the air as far as, like, is the Pac-12 going to get their deal done? Are they not going to get it done? Are they going to be one of the schools left out? Are they going to want to join the Big 12, but Arizona holds them back? And so much uncertainty, and not all of that's on Kenny Dillingham by any means, but a lot of uncertainty. And I think he weathered the storm pretty well. Not a whole lot of wins to show for it, but I think if you're an Oklahoma football fan, or not an Oklahoma football fan, I'm still thinking about Lincoln Riley. Excuse me.
Can't get enough.
If you're an Arizona State fan, I think you feel really good about your football season. So I'll give them. Let's see, what did I give Arizona? I'll give them a 37. I think you feel slightly. That's how'd that come up as an F? What does that turn out to?
Oh no. Yeah, I wonder if you didn't maybe there's something on the cells sheet, like the formula behind. Let's see. Let's look at our sum equation, Brandon.
Here we go. We're really diving in.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's already just calculating these as zeros.
Oh, they might be calculating those as zero. Let's just play it out.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
Okay, that's it. Okay, we're good. We're fine.
Oh, because it's
okay.
Okay. I see. Okay, I see.
Yeah, you got it. You're good. Boy, well, I thought we were going to be, the Excel sheets. I thought we were going to go nuts tonight. I thought we were going to be freaks in the Excel sheets. No, Arizona State's football program, I'm going to go 30. Here's the reason, Brandon. I think I'm fully with you. This is a rebuild. They got to fight through some things, all that. Their facilities, I still wish they had a little more. I wish their fan base gave a little bit more, considering how big that student population is. And this is an era where you can rebuild rather quickly, and you can also lose rather quickly based on NIL, transfer portal. You got to keep giving them time. I think they did some positive stuff. I like the trajectory of the program. But they do need, you would like to see a few more wins in the win column, and we'll see if they find that in the Big 12.
And then we look at the basketball team, and not exactly a big brand coming up out of the Big 12 or out of the Pac-12, and kind of when you go to the best conference in America, that gets tricky. I feel like right down the middle here. Nothing very impressive out of them. I'll give them a good 20.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm kind of with you. Bobby Hurley is the coach. Of course, his brother Dan Hurley just won his second national championship at UConn. Bobby Hurley is an all-time player. He's got a tough situation. But you're right, Brandon. There's not juice in that program right now. We're talking about this last season. I'm going to give them, I'm not going to go fail. I'll go 24 will be my number for them. But boy, I'm probably being a little lenient. I do like Bobby Hurley, but we'll see. We'll see.
On an overall outlook, I feel real good about their football program. I feel very poorly about their basketball program. So I'll give them a good 12.5. I football has a little bit more juice there, so not quite a 50%, but just because I love Kenny Dillingham, and if he can just bring together just a little bit, and I think that Arizona State feels like they can, I think that'll kind of make up for the tough winter.
I'm gonna go 11 is what my number will be. Let's see what we get to our class average with that 11. I don't know if I want to put them in F. Oh, okay,
So
that
that,
rose
it's
the average.
yeah,
Okay,
D.
yeah, that's about right. So I'm going 11, Brandon. I think the football program, there's no reason they can't win. Tempe is a good area for climate. Arizona State is famous for its social atmosphere. And I mean, that's got to be a recruiting pitch for sure. I think their football program can do some really good stuff, Brandon. I mean that. I think they could be a 7-8 win team on a regular basis in the Big 12, but that remains to be seen. Their basketball program, I have grave doubts about. So that's why my number's a little bit lower.
And the next one's fun because it could it's a lot of fun. We got the Colorado Buffaloes. So just to recap their football season, they won 4 games, which especially with the way that the season ended, you blow a 3-touchdown lead to Stanford, um, and get absolutely torched up and down the field by the Cardinal after what was such an electric start. But you also have to take in consideration that team was significantly better than the team that Coach Prime inherited
Agreed.
and very public fashion got rid of very, very quickly after he got there. So let's see here. So out of 40, I'll go 37. I feel if I'm a Colorado fan, I feel like that was a huge success. I feel like you won some games and you're really hoping that you fill some gaps this year. But 4 wins after being the worst team in college football the year before, I think that's such a huge win.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that, Brandon. They go 4-8. They really fell off the rails in the months of October, November. We've already mentioned Dan Lanning's clicks and wins. There was something defining about that Oregon game that just kind of really side railed their season because the hype was pretty high going into that game, and Oregon just beat the tracks out of. I mean, it was an unbelievable game. You can't take away. I mean, there was no interest in the program before Dion showed up, and we can't overlook that. Season ticket revenue beyond up, like donors high. I'm going 35. I'm not going to give an A because that is a losing record, Brandon, despite a 3-win improvement. But that doesn't take away from the fact that there is interest in the program. And I mean, they are the definition of a wild card team in the Big 12. No one knows what's going to happen with them because I just don't get the feeling we're going to have a neutral reaction after this season. It's either going to be, wow, Dion and his team really proved all the doubters wrong. And that probably will include me. We'll see how my summer I let everything digest. But there could very easily be they went 2-10 and Dion's trying to get to the NFL. Like, that's not crazy, I don't think either. So I'm going 35 because I again, it's based on last season. I think they did do a lot of good and there is interest.
Yeah, and I think with all of these programs, because it also matters like how you want to grade them. Because if you just look at just their season without any context, like this is an F. This team stunk. This team wasn't very good. This team was loud. This and that. But if you're grading it on a scale of where the student was last year, which maybe isn't the best way to grade somebody, but that's kind of how I feel like is most fair in this snapshot of a season. I think they feel pretty good. I think men's basketball also feels pretty good. Again, this one on a huge scale. So I'm going to give them same grade as I gave Arizona, a 30. I think they a good season, not a great season, but
Yeah.
I don't think expectations are ever really that high there. That's worth considering.
No, and you know what, basketball, I'm going to give a little higher grade on that. I mean, their expectations are different. I'm going to go 36. They did win NCAA tournament game. They played arguably the best, funnest game of the tournament when they played Florida, and that game was like 198. It was a great back and forth affair. Tad Boyle's a great coach. He always finds diamonds in the rough that just can really play basketball, at least from a skill wise standpoint. And I don't know where they'll do in the new Big 12. We'll get to that in a minute in the outlook. But if you look at this last season, it was a great season for Colorado, a fun season. They got a fun team. And they got a pretty good home court atmosphere when they got a big opponent in town, too.
Not an easy place to play, that's for sure.
For sure. You know it as a Nebraska fan. I know it as an Iowa State fan. Like they can get some juice out in Boulder when they're feeling it.
And now Outlook's interesting because, I mean, do you look at it from the point of view of a Colorado fan? Do you look at it from the point of like just objectivity? How do you look at this? If I'm looking at it from a Colorado fan, I'm giving this the full 20. I think that there's a lot of optimism that what Coach Prime is working on is working. I mean, for the first time, I mean, if you're our age, really the first time in your memorable lives, like this is the first time that people have been talking about Colorado.
Right.
And I think that means so much. And I think by this point, you're bought all the way in on Coach Prime. And like you said, Tad Boyle, when you're upgrading a conference like this, the one thing that you just want to ask for is some stability. They have plenty of that. They know that they're not going to come in and really go toe to toe with Houston and Iowa State and the great basketball brands in the Big 12, Kansas, Baylor, national champion just a few years ago. But I think that they feel very comfortable with where they're at.
Yeah, I think they do too, Brandon. I'm going to go 16. And both programs I feel are in good places. And I know the Colorado football programs can continue to draw heavy national headlines all summer long. Those games are going to be heavily scrutinized next fall. You and I are definitely going to be probably getting 30 minutes of material based off one Colorado football game. I can about guarantee it. But it's hard not to be optimistic. I mean, they're getting interest in the community. They're getting interest in the state. That means something. Football's doing, I think, some really solid stuff in terms of generating that interest. We'll see if they can find a few more wins. And then basketball, I've just always had a lot of respect for that Colorado program the last decade. They're consistent. And I don't know how they're going to do in the Big 12, as I've said with the other two programs already. They're coming from the Pac-12, and we'll get to Utah in a bit. But, I mean, I like their style and vibe, but there are some questions on both ends, Brandon, and I'm not going to go heavily over rosy on the outlook, but it is a positive one.
Now we got the Utah Utes. Football is such a funny one to me because if you look at the pros, you beat USC again. They love beating USC. Cons, you didn't get Cam Rising back at all. You didn't really compete for the conference on a team that won back-to-back conference championships. So win-loss, you took a step back. And then you get blown out by Northwestern in the bowl game. That's a tough look. But then how much context do you give to not having Cam Rising? Let's see, out of 40, I'll give them a 27. I feel like that's a real disappointing year for the Utes, especially where they're at. You only get so many years of Coach Kyle, but 27 feels tough.
Whittingham. Yeah, tough. Yeah, tough name to say, but yeah, I know what you mean. I'll tell you what, Brandon. They got unlucky last year in terms of this. Oregon and Washington decide to wake up and start playing football again. And that played a significant impact on the Utah season. And I'm not blind to that. But at the end of the day, this is a team that has won multiple Pac-12 titles, has played in Rose Bowls these last few years, has one of the more no, I'm not going to be sugarcoated. It's an insufferable fan base. It's amazing how much that fan base chirps considering various levels of success.
But Drew, you forgot they
I
lost 2 Rose Bowls. They're the leading conference Rose Bowl loser. That's there's still people with
big, not
Roses
even
in their
big
Twitter
if true.
handles.
That's big and true. So that's a great point, Brandon. Um, I'm gonna go 28. I'm gonna be in kind of that same ballpark as you because they did win. It's not like they didn't get wins last year, but they have expectations. That fan base thinks they're going to come in, win the Big 12 year one. So if that's the case, then you're not getting higher than a C from me. It's really that simple. If you didn't win your conference based on your expectations.
Now, men's basketball, they went to the NIT. They did beat up on Iowa, so we certainly appreciate that. 6 in the Pac-12, 22-15 record. Can you tell me more about the Utes basketball team and where they landed for it?
Yeah, in fact, last year was probably a good year based on their expectations. They have an old Jim Brandon. They don't have fan base that's, excuse me, that's, too invested in their program. I think that's a problem for them. And if I have to take a guess of these new 4 schools, Utah is by far and away the most I'm concerned about their basketball program, but we'll get to that in a minute with their outlook. Regarding their season as a whole, look, they did make the NIT, and as sick as that sounds, that's a good development for them. So I'll give them a 30. I will, just because they are low expectations there, and at least they made some type of a postseason tournament. Now their holy rival, BYU, easily made the NCAA tournament before just a disastrous first-round performance. But that was a good BYU team, and you know how much I was scared of them throughout the season. I thought they could really play when they were on. So I'll give them a 30, but I'll get to that outlook in a minute.
Yeah, I'll go 30 as well. Again, expectations is kind of the big thing. I feel like Utah, compared to Utah basketball, had a successful season. Obviously not. I feel like you got to make the tournament for me to at least give you more than a 30, especially considering I only gave Colorado. I'll give them a 29. It feels silly to give them a score higher than or equal to Colorado, but yeah, good, great year. They beat up Iowa, so that's probably where that's worth a few points to me.
Yeah, that's why they earned a C from me. I was like, they beat Iowa. That's an average season. Iowa State had the mentality for too many years of, well, we beat Iowa, so it was a good year. Like, there are 11 other games, guys, for football. There is 29 other games for basketball. Maybe we should, focus on winning those too. Those are kind of important. But, yeah.
Outlook wise, interesting. I feel really good. Also, worth mentioning, part of this latest lawsuit with the NCAA, if you transferred and had to sit out for a season, you get another year of eligibility, which means Cam Rising now has 2 more years of eligibility. So
Big.
that's insane to think about. I think if you're Utah, you feel very good about your football program. I think you truly feel like you're going to come in. Unfortunately, we've seen this plenty on Twitter. They feel very confident they're going to come in and dominate the conference. I don't think that's true, but I think the outlook and the vibes are immaculate. Basketball, not so much. That's going to ding them a couple of points for me. I'll give them a sweet 16.
Okay, that's not a bad score because as much as it pains me to say, their football program is in decent shape to make a nice run starting even this year in the Big 12. Yeah, that's wild on Cam Rising. Shoot, that guy's going to be a father of 3, and like the kids are going to preschool by the time he's done with college football. Like, amazing how long he's been around.
Younger than him on their second NFL contract.
I don't know. That always messes with me when you have like those random late 20s guys. Like, we're getting to the age now, Brandon, where like most of the college football players are born 2000 or after, which is insane to think about for me. Like, that's like, I'm like, where's my 90s kids? That's me.
All of them, really. I mean, they'd be 24 if they were born in 2000.
Yeah, so that's why I live for like a random punter who's 29 that's still like trying to kick away. Like, a lot of respect there. No, this is a tough one, Brandon, because I like their football program, but their basketball program, and they just might not care. Basketball, they might just not care at all. And that there is that too. Like, how much does your fan base care about that? I'm going to go 14 because I think the football program, I'm with you, has real potential. But that basketball program, I have serious concerns about. I think that could be a bottom 4 team on a semi-regular basis in the conference. You could be screenshotting this clip come next March and making fun of me. I'm sure you have a heck of a memory, Brandon, so you probably would. But I do have doubts of whether they can compete on a night in, night out basis and what will be just just insanity conference of the Big 12 from December all the way through early March.
And so that wraps up the first four, or the new four teams coming into the conference. Arizona, kind of our second highest grade with a B. Colorado with a B plus, a solid 87.
Mm-hmm.
Utah ended up pretty low, lower than what I thought, but I mean that's a tough year. And then Arizona State also a little bit lower than I would have expected. But again, they don't have much to really show for it.
Yeah, and I mean these grades could change. These programs can prove us wrong, whether good or bad. There's a lot to play, and I mean Brandon and I are going to be doing a pretty good amount of research throughout the summer of trying to not have at least semi-educated takes on these programs. We're not going to pretend we know everything, but I do feel good on our grades on this one, Brandon, at least from a starting standpoint.
I already pre-ordered Phil Steele's magazine. There's a couple others that I have my eyes on.
You know, it's funny you mentioned Phil Steele. Here's a quick story. Brandon and I worked at a radio station in Perry, Iowa for a couple of years. That's how we know each other. We have a coworker, an ESPN broadcaster who's really good. He's been mentioned a couple of times, a guy named Sean Kenny. SK, ladies and gentlemen. This guy's a legend. Best wrestling broadcaster you'll find. I mean it. He is really good. So Brandon, Sean Kenny, this was a couple of years ago, randomly walks into the on-air studio. And he's asked me, he says, do you know who Phil Steele is? I'm like, yeah. Do you? And he's like, no, I've never heard of him. Which was shocking because he does Big 12 college football.
Yeah.
We should have him on the pod sometime, but he'll never show up. I guarantee it.
Yeah.
That's guaranteed. I love Sean. And he's like, and so I guess he watched like some random spring game the Phil Steele did. It was like blown away by Sean Kenny's he's like, I picked up all this stuff for my magazine. And Sean Kenny's like, let me go drink a gallon of milk. I don't care. And that was it. So that's the whole story. So no, Phil Steele, I mean, he does a great job though. He's as good as you're going to find in that department.
Oh man, so that was a lot of fun. So I got that pre-order. I got the VIP package this year. So I
did you? What's that come with? What's all in that?
Oh, good question. So I screenshot it because it was a bit of an impulse buy, and I was like, I'm not going to remember everything that comes with it. And it's shout out Phil Steele. He does a lot of great work. The website could use some work. The website could use.
He doesn't come across as a guy who gives one rip how the website looks. It's like I'm just all football knowledge.
Yeah, I don't even think it asks for like an email address, which is
incredible.
So for $39.95, it comes with the magazine.
Yep.
The digital version of the magazine.
Yep.
The digital version of the FCS magazine. I'll dive into that, but it'll look good on the bookshelf. You get Phil Steele Plus from June to September. Oh, I get that right now. I gotta tap into that. I gotta figure out what that's about.
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
4 issues of Inside the Press Box starting the week 1 of the season. I'm not exactly sure what that is, but the big thing is that the digital edition, as soon as that's ready, I get it, which is huge. You get to start diving into it, and then I'll get the magazine before it shows up at Barnes & Noble and your favorite retailers. So, and then that's really all I was looking for is the early access.
It's big. I mean, it's fun to just drop random nuggets of information and just like have people like, wow, that guy really knows his stuff. When this guy just was, 5 minutes before, like, all right, how am I going to blow these people away on Phil Steele? Yeah. That's next level thinking, Brandon. No one's prepared for that.
And while we're on the topic, the other two that I'm going to invest in is Pick Six Previews. He does a really good one. I think over the last 5 years, his has been the most accurate. So he's fantastic. He also follows me on Twitter, so I appreciate that. Heisman voter, and then also CFB Budge. CF Budge on Twitter. He had what ended up being the most accurate one last year. Um,
Hmm,
so, and
that's
I don't
next
know if you,
level.
yeah. So I'm dialing in on those three. So,
Sounds like a business expense for go Big 12 or go home. Sounds
absolutely.
like that's just do that. That seems simple enough.
Next thing, as soon as I get them ordered, I send the receipts over to our accountant, Vincent Adult Man, and he handles all the business transactions.
Well, if there's a guy that knows business people and places, it's Vincent. That's a sharp young man right there, and he loves the adult roller coaster rides at theme parks too, I'm told.
I'll say you're absolutely right about all those things, except he's not a very young man. He's a very old
Of
professional
course.
gentleman. So he
Yes.
points that out every time I ask him about it. I'm like, how old are you? Like, how old enough?
He has a kid named Kevin who looks exactly like Vincent. It's
Yeah,
scary.
good father, good father.
Excellent father. Yep. It's clearly just three kids stacked on top of each other on a trench coat, but we love Vincent Adult
We
Man.
love him. All right, so that brings us to I mean my preferred Utah school, BYU. One of the new four teams that came to the Big 12 this year. Football, I think fared about as well as anybody in the conference. Was always a tough road game, as we'll expect. Will stay the same. On a scale of 1 to 40, I'll give them a solid 30. Again, I'll give them a 32. I give them a couple extra points because it's a challenge coming into a Power Five league like that and holding your own like they did.
Yeah, that's tough. And they had a really nice season. They had some big wins. I remember when BYU went to Fayetteville, Arkansas, and at the time, it felt like a major road win. Um, and unfortunately, Arkansas was just trash last year, and that just hurt me so much. But um, look, they're building a good program. They, I think, had a productive year. I really like that number 32. And shoot, you know what? I hate the Celtics, but I'll show some love to Larry Bird. I'll do a 33. I did like what they were able to put together last year on that football gridiron.
And then basketball, good regular season, good Big 12 debut,
Yeah.
disastrous March. How are you feeling about the Cougars? Are they the
Tough to be
Cougars?
mad. I mean, that
BYU
was a really
Cougars?
good season last year. I thought Brandon. Um, I know they had a tough first round of March Madness, but like they got some great wins last year. They were beyond competitive in the Big 12, earned a 5 seed or 4 or 5 seed in Kansas City, which was very impressive to me out of that 14 team league. I know things didn't end well, and I know Arizona was judged differently, but Arizona's on a different class than BYU. I'm going to give them a 37. I'll give them the highest score I
Wow.
have so far. And the reason is I thought I look at the full body of work from November all the way through the madness. I really thought they did some good stuff under Mark Pope. That does change my outlook, and we'll get to that in a minute because they did, lose that guy, but doesn't take away from that season.
Yeah, 37's a big number. I'm gonna go a few takes down. I'll give them a 34 for men's basketball. I think if they win one game, if they just win one stinking game, then it's 37, 38 territory, like real A plus territory. But boy, it just what a letdown. I kind of felt like one bigger upsets in the first round, especially when like the Big 12 conference really kind of needed everybody to pull their weight. They didn't. That left a bitter taste, but still a very successful season.
Yeah, 100%. And, you look at the outlook for BYU. This is a tough one,
It's
Brandon,
tough.
because I like what they did football wise. My question is, can they take the next step? I like what they did basketball wise. They just lost their coach to Kentucky after all the just ridiculousness, all starred by, of all teams, SMU, who decided to
No
start
kidding.
that madness. So that's a tough one on the outlook. Out of 20, I'm just gonna go safe. This is safe. 15. That's the definition of safe. It's like a golf shot, 150 yards out. I'm hitting a 7-iron. I'm going to get within 20 feet of the pin. Um,
50.
I don't know, Brandon. It's a tough call because football is in. I feel like I'm a broken record, but like they should make a bowl game this season. And basketball, can they take another step? I just don't know because they lost, I think, a pretty good coach in Pope.
Yeah, I'll also go a couple of ticks down here because I think when you look at the outlook and the vibes, first of all, I don't think Brigham Young University has tremendous vibes and aura to begin with. And then you lose your men's basketball coach, and it's kind of like how many guys are willing to come coach BYU who are also good enough to get the Kentucky job. It feels like a very small list of individuals. I mean, how likely are they to strike oil twice? So yeah, I'll give them a 13 in football. As you said, even though um, they had a successful year last year, I think that scale you take a little bit of weight off of it. And if you're looking at a 6-win season next year, it probably doesn't feel as good as if they had gotten there this year.
I'd agree with that. I'd agree with that. And I think, that fan base loves the Cougars. They get some great crowds for football. They get some great crowds for basketball. You and I are mature enough. We're not going to crack any more any jokes about everything. They're good people. They mean extremely, like, they're really nice people out in Provo, and Utah is a beautiful state in general. So there's a lot of good things going on. Donor base will be interesting to see going forward. But, when we look at our 5 West Coast schools that we've graded, Brandon, Arizona total B, Arizona State D, Colorado B plus, Utah C, BYU B minus. I think you and I did a pretty good job tonight of getting to those
Yeah.
today of getting to those West Coast schools. And I think I think we're going to do kind of a multi-tier series here. Because I kind of want to dig into the Midwest and East Coast. I kind of want to do a little more research on a couple schools before we dig into grades. But I think there's some real talent in that West Coast, Brandon. And of those 5, based on our grades, we have the most kind of rosy look or vibe about Colorado. And I don't think that's a crazy take. I think they have the highest ceiling. I think they also have the lowest floor. Colorado's pretty fascinating, and it'll be fun to see how the Buffaloes do going forward.
All right. So we'll take one last review before we head out. So far, pretty good. I mean, we haven't really trashed any schools. There's a couple of schools that are going to really bring this class average down. But as we look at Arizona, good stuff there.
Yeah.
Colorado, again, probably the more up and down one that we'll see here overall. So I think
Boy,
some
these
good stuff
charts
with
are
this.
gorgeous, Brandon.
Yeah. Shout out Google Sheets. They put all this together. I did
Hey.
nothing.
Is Microsoft Excel and Word in trouble with Google Sheets and Google Word and Google Docs?
Especially when it comes to Excel, it's still definitely superior.
Agreed.
However, like the gap is pretty small, especially comparatively to the price tag.
I think for the average everyday Joe, and I'm an average everyday Joe, I'm
This
kind
is
of good
plenty.
with Google Sheets or Google Excel and Sheets. Like, they seem to work for me. But you are right. Like, when Microsoft Excel can do some stuff that's just still insane
Yeah.
that can't be done on Google yet. But that doesn't mean Google does not.
Well, that'll do it for us. We'll wrap up the rest of the Big 12 here next week, and boy, this will be a lot of fun because I think, especially as dialed in as we've been with some of these schools over the last year. I mean, we've gotten to see these students prosper and come up short and disappoint. So I'm very excited because these do kind of feel like the schools that, like, if there were ones that were less educated on it, it's these ones. But any final thoughts before we wrap up here?
I want to give a big shout out. This is really for people in the state of Iowa that would care, but a big shout out to Keith Murphy and Andy Fales, 2 legendary TV personalities and radio hosts in the Des Moines metro area. They work for WHO TV, also WHO Radio or KXNO, the sports station, announced that they're leaving their #1 rated sports show this past week after 15 years. You talk about chemistry amongst duos, Brandon, and usually when you hear radio shows, you can usually feel within 5 minutes if a duo likes each other or not. And that team just worked so freaking well together. And Keith Murphy, Andy Fales, don't know if they're going to keep doing stuff on the side. Would love if they kept a podcast going because they really do a phenomenal job of covering Iowa sports and beyond. But wanted to give a personal salute to those 2. I've never met either. Would love to shake their hand one day. They seem like good guys. So just a salute to Keith Murphy, Andy Fales.
And even just some bigger picture stuff, especially with Keith Murphy. like if you were ever scrolling through Twitter and you saw like an update about the Iowa State gambling fiasco,
Yeah.
it was him. All those
Yes.
tweets, all the information. He did such a good job of covering that in very high detail that all the information you saw, first of all, you probably saw his tweets come across your feed, whether you follow him or not. And then even if you didn't, the people whose tweets you did see got all their information from Keith's tweet. He was outstanding. He's as big J as they come.
Yeah, I mean, originally from Florida, which is crazy, and I'm sure viewed initially when he came to Iowa, viewed as a pit stop, and he's turned into a legendary career. And when things are all said and done, Brandon, at least for me personally, I mean, this guy's been on since I was a little kid on TV. I mean, my family moved down to Missouri when I was 6, and this guy was doing WHO sports then. And I moved back up near 20 years later, and he's still on and still at a high rate. So big shout to Keith Murphy and Andy Fales, obviously an all-time talent. WHO TV 13 Sports, they obviously they're an all-time team.